Good morning everyone, welcome. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all members of the Cabinet, other members of the Council and officers in attendance at today's Cabinet meeting, 4th of October 2023. Welcome to members of the public and press who may be watching this meeting live on YouTube. I am Councillor Jill Cleary, Leader of the Council and Chairman of the Cabinet. I would now like to hand over to Democratic Services to read the housekeeping note.
Please note this meeting is being broadcast live on the Council's website and on YouTube. It will remain available for a minimum of 12 months. I would like to remind those in attendance to use your microphone when speaking and switch it off when you finish speaking. Please switch any mobile devices to a silent setting for the duration of the meeting. If the fire alarm rings, please can everyone leave the room immediately using the nearest available fire exit. Do not use the lift. Upon leaving the building, please go to the fire assembly point located at the bottom of the car park alongside the garages.
For the benefit of those watching the meeting online, please would members introduce themselves during the meeting if not already introduced by name. Right, apologies.
None.
Thank you. Item 1, minutes. Do Cabinet members agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of September 2023 as a correct record?
Yeah, agreed.
Item 2, declarations of interest. Do Cabinet members have any declarations of pecuniary or any other interest in respect of the business for this meeting? None? Thank you. Doesn't look as if there is any public participation. So we're going to go straight into item 4, tenant engagement strategy. The portfolio holder, Steve Davis, can you please introduce the report?
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm delighted that this report has come forward. This is the culmination once again of some significant work by the team, by the tenant engagement manager in particular, Dave Brown. This has been discussed with the tenants engagement group. It has wide-ranging support, and it's an absolute pleasure to see this come forward. Thank you.
David Brown, would you like to add anything?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is our new proposed tenant engagement strategy. It's been drafted in response to the Social Housing Charter for Social Housing Tenants and the subsequent Social Housing Regulation Act. It's been produced considering best practice and the views of our teams and our practitioners, and more importantly, in partnership with our involved tenants. We've also ensured that we've been horizon scanning to make sure it's fit for the next 4 years, considering the direction of the regulator of social housing and the Housing Ombudsman. Strategy is underpinned by four key strategic priorities we want to achieve to ensure our tenants are at the heart of our housing services and their lived experience is able to drive and shape our services, as well as holding us to account. It also helps us as a council achieve our core role and ambitions within the housing services. These priorities are listening to our tenants, so making sure our tenants have a voice and that their voice is heard at all levels within the council. Putting tenants first, ensuring that we have a culture of ownership and accountability on issues that are important to our tenants, and creating a true partnership approach. Knowing our tenants and supporting engagement, getting our data and our data integrity right, and making sure that we know our tenants, their household makeup and their circumstances to ensure accessible services and equality in approach, and knowing our and how we communicate with our tenants, so providing a range of methods that are easy for our tenants to work with us, provide tenants with information that's important to them, and enabling our tenants to hold us to account. The Council will be supported to achieve the actions highlighted within these priorities by utilising proactive, responsive and structured methods of engagement and a flexible work plan that continue to be co-produced with tenants.
Thank you. Members of the Cabinet, do you have any comments or questions? Okay. I should take it out to the wider field. I've got Councillor Wade and then Councillor Dowd.
Thank you, Chairman. This is very welcome, and I know a lot of hard work has gone into this, and I understand more work to improve the relationship with the tenancies going forward. My only question is that I believe the consultation period with the tenants starts in mid-October. Can you assure me we'll do all we can to try and get as many, to publicise it enough so as many tenants are involved and can consult? Because hearing the voice of the tenant is very important to this authority, so we can move forward with them on board and to get the best possible results from this process.
Councillor Davis as portfolio holder.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wade. Absolutely. I think we pride ourselves on our tenants' engagement team, as you know, and again, following on from the previous portfolio holders, I am very keen to build bridges even bigger. So yes, I can assure you we'll be engaging with as many people as we can and ensuring we take on board their feedback.
Councillor Dowd.
Thank you. Yes, I think it's an excellent report with a lot of good potential good practice in there. I'm just curious. There's one bit that I think is fascinating, which is the focus engagement activity in communal areas, and I'm just concerned about how that's actually going to be achieved in practice. As we know, surveys will give a snapshot of matters in time when they occur. For example, what time of year can result in very different outcomes. So it's always important to get a picture over time of how these things happen. So can I have a little bit more detail about how we're expecting to engage in the communal area focus activities? Thank you.
I'd like to go to Officer Dave Brown.
Thank you. Yeah. So we've got a lot of work to do. It is a 4-year plan, but we've got our housing hubs, which we will utilise to get into our communities. We want to see our housing teams, so all of our frontline teams. I think tenant engagement is not just something that sits with my team. I've got a team of 2, but it sits with all of our housing services, and all of our housing services are out in our communities on a daily basis. It's about hearing that voice and understanding what our tenants want in terms of that community approach. So it may well be that, for example, in one area, they want to see us out on our estates monthly and they want to have a chat with us, or it may well be that actually in our more rural communities, they don't want to see us that often, but when they do see us, it needs to be meaningful. So we have already started that piece of work. My team have been out into our more rural communities, been asking our tenants, what do we do well and what we could do better? So we're starting to build that database of information so we can be really proactive in that community outreach.
Thank you, Chairman. I look forward to this report. I think it's very, very necessary, and I look forward to it coming to Council in early 2024. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you. Right, can I take you to the recommendations on page 3, please? Agreed?
Agreed, thank you.
Thank you. Right. Item 5, Community Infrastructure Levy, commonly known as SIL. Can I go to Derek, please?
Good morning. Yes, this is a very thorough report, and I fully agree with the recommendations for option 4.1. And I look forward to working with all the members of the advisory task and finish group once it gets set up, as well, of course, as parish and town councils and local members. And it's important that we should spend this SIL money on much needed infrastructure products for the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the Cabinet? Councillor Jeremy Herron.
Thank you very much, Ada. I want to just say how pleased I was to see this report coming forward. I think it's SIL is, to me, still fairly relative. Money is designed to put in the very vital infrastructure that needs to follow from development. Whilst it's very good that it sits in our bank account, that doesn't deliver on the necessary fronts that the local community wants. And I'm pleased to see that we're going to be working with the town and parish council to get that money out and on the ground, very important, and to deliver for our communities, as I say, that important infrastructure. We don't want to waste it. It's a significant amount of money. And it's always easy to spend money, isn't it? Anyone can do that. What it is important that we work carefully to make sure that we deliver the right results with what is, although a large pot, still a fairly limited resources when you start looking at what some of these costs are, some of these projects are, because they can be very big money. I'm delighted to see this coming forward and can't wait to see it actually spent and on the ground. Thank you.
I think the only comment that I kind of had actually echoes Councillor Heron's comments really, in terms of we're aware this is a new system and we will be working with towns and parish councils to seek bids, and we'll be setting up a briefing with them shortly to go through the process, and we will be available to them to discuss bids, as during the bidding process, which is likely to be from sort of mid-October to kind of mid-December. But yeah, we are also keen to work with them to get the right bids for the right projects.
Chairman, well, I'm very pleased about this because the Chairman of Place and Sustainability put this on the panel to get the ball rolling, to get this process started, because we've had this money and we need to use it, as my honourable member over there said, on vital projects. The one question I have, this is a new process, and forgive me if I didn't quite hear what Dean said, that it starts October. But we're in October already. Is it October for next year or is it for this year? Because obviously town and parish councils need to be able to apply for this in a timely manner, and we are already in October.
Yeah, we're talking sort of mid-October this year to mid-December. So whilst in the framework we're usually saying an October period, we're obviously doing a slightly extended one for this year to allow obviously parishes to bid. And as I say, we will work with them during that period as well.
Thank you. I have Councillor Steve Clark.
Thank you, Leader. I welcome this report. I think community infrastructure levy is one of those things which has become one of the world's greatest mysteries, in that it's there for us to spend, but actually we don't always realise the restrictions and what we can actually spend it on. So a report that clarifies exactly the type of projects. We can't just pluck a project out of the air. They need to be strategic, they need to be well planned. I think this gives us the excellent guidance, and to liaise with towns and parishes to come forward to spend money which in actual fact can only be spent in those very specific ways, and not just otherwise just sits there not being used. I think is very welcome, and I look forward to the consultations with the towns and parishes, especially my own.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor David Hawkins.
Thank you, Leader. My question was similar to what Steve Clark has just mentioned. When you say infrastructure, could you explain more what type of infrastructure you're talking about? Whether it's the building infrastructure or the infrastructure for the people living in towns and parishes?
I should go to the portfolio holder, Councillor Derek Tipp.
Well, if you look at the appendix in 4.2, lower down, there's a whole list of examples of potential projects: allotments, litter bins, public toilets, parking places, seats, shelters, etc. There's a whole long list of them there. And that's not an exhaustive list, but it does give you a good idea, I think, of what it can be. It's in the appendix, way down. It is a long report.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins, are you okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, can I then take you to the recommendations, please, on page 27?
Agreed? Yeah. Thank you.
Right, agenda item 6, medium-term financial plan 2023 and onwards. I'll go to portfolio holder Jeremy Heron to introduce the report.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm pleased to bring forward the medium-term financial plan. This is where you can't hide behind smoke and mirrors, as politicians are often accused of. These are hard figures and hard facts from which you can't get away. But we have before us what could be classed clearly as a game of two halves. I'm delighted to see that we remain in a strong financial position, which enables us to deliver on all the frontline services that we need to for our residents. But anybody who reads the report and looks at it will see that as we progress through the medium-term financial plan, starting in 25-26, going on to 27-28, that actually our funding with the realignment on the business rates will cause us some significant financial problems. Now, we don't want to wait until those are upon us. We need to look to how we are going to address these, and I think that the report shows how we look to deal with that and how we take it forward. So we are comfortable at the moment. We are delivering on our services. We're delivering a balanced budget, but as we go further into that medium-term financial plan, we are going to start incurring some issues that need to be addressed early on if we are to successfully overcome them. I am confident that we will. Again, if we go further onto that, that's the general fund. If we go on down into the housing revenue account, you'll see that we also face a number of challenges. First of all, the cost of our delivering on our promise to provide additional homes is indeed a burden upon the HRA. And added to that is the green housing agenda and strategy, which is also a significant cost. Again, we will work with officers to deliver on that, because I am again confident that we will. But again, another challenge for this council financially in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just to add a slightly fuller narrative, just to bring out some of the key features of the report from my point of view. So yeah, just to confirm, this is the first update of the medium-term financial plan since we set the budget back in February earlier this year. So section 4 of the report deals with the Council's general fund, that being the account that's largely funded through council tax and business rates. So assumptions on funding are provided, including likely levels of government support, and of course the likely impact of the changes assumed as a result of the long-awaited but still very much anticipated business rate reset. So updated expenditure forecasts are provided, and obviously I make assumptions on pay and other inflationary linked increases, as well as other budget changes required as a result of decisions already taken or items linked to ongoing negotiation and discussions. It's worth just pointing out here that there are still further risks involved in some of these assumptions. So, you know, pay and reward, for example, is a key one. That's been a key challenge for us for the last couple of years. Cost of homelessness is still quite an unknown quantity, and of course inflation is still running fairly high. So again, there are kind of a lot of underlying assumptions here that are still at risk. And in terms of the negotiation position, obviously members will know that we're still very much involved in discussion, debate with Hampshire County Council in terms of proposed waste charges. So again, there are things in here that fall outside of the numbers, but are very much sort of real risks for the council at this point. So section 4C essentially brings that together, brings together the funding and expenditure assumptions, and yeah, demonstrates the resultant forecast deficit over the 4-year period, which totals just in excess of 3.5 million. Obviously, we need options to identify to close that gap. So it's pleasing that work is very much underway in achieving those required savings and targeting some income growth. I have to say we've got an excellent track record as an authority in terms of being proactive in decision making and basically staying ahead of the curve, and it's really important that that continues. And it's nice to see actually even the next paper actually is you know, really thinking forward about those decisions to be taken in things like fees and charges to really give us that potential headroom actually, not only to address the budget deficit, but actually create a little bit of gap to really invest, which is a really strong position for any authority to be in. So section 5 of the report then covers the housing revenue account. So slightly different set of challenges in terms of the housing revenue account. So it's an account that's far more stable in terms of its income and perhaps its ability to maintain a very steady income base and obviously grow potentially in line with government parameters. But the housing revenue account has a very different set of challenges in terms of capital expenditure requirements on the horizon. So we've got EPCC targets by 2030 to meet. You know, when you've got over 5,000 houses, that's significant amounts of money. We obviously still have our aspiration and priority to grow our housing numbers and balance that with an ageing stock and maintenance and ongoing planned and reactive requirements. It's going to be a challenge. So again, that's something that we'll be spending time getting into over the next few months and before we bring forward an updated report. So with that in mind, yeah, the report also then includes the proposed timeline as this develops. Obviously, this is very much a fluid process right up until we get to February and the ultimate setting of next year's budget. But there are some key recommendations for the Cabinet to make today up to Council, basically to start that process and start the ball rolling up to February. Thank you.
Any members of the Cabinet wish to comment?
Yeah, me.
Councillor Steve Davis.
Yes, thank you. Obviously, as the portfolio holder for housing and homelessness, I was actually quite pleased to actually read this report, because what it actually gives me are the warts and all picture. It gives me the short-term, medium-term and long-term plan that we have to have. This shows we're in control, and I think this is something that's so important. Yes, the numbers are eye-watering when we look about our commitments, EPC, insulation, etc. It is expensive, but it's something we have to do. And the fact that we've detailed it, I think everyone is now aware that we have a plan and we know what we're doing. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I know that the officers in this council will protect the finances and look after the New Forest District Council's piggy bank very well, if you pardon the expression. But there's still a number of variables, and there are variables even in the risk. Can I be assured that we will not overcompensate, because we have been putting money aside year on year on year prior to this for this future issue with the business rates? Can I be assured we will not overcompensate and put money aside that could have been spent and needs to be spent on residents, services of residents of the New Forest? Totally understand the sensible planning, the financial protectionism. That's accepted that we're going to do that to make sure we have a balanced budget. But can I be assured that we will not overcompensate and there will be funding that should have been spent on New Forest people that hasn't? Because I think that's important, because the country's in for a tough time going forward, and we need to consider our residents as well. So it's getting that balance right between protecting and balancing the budget, but ensuring we don't put too much away that could have been spent on services for local people.
Portfolio holder Jeremy Heron.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I can assure Councillor Wade that that is not the case, and we would not look at that. We have a well-balanced budget. We usually carry a £3 million general fund reserve, which is a prudent level given the fact that we have an over an £80 million general fund net expenditure. So, no, we do not hoard money, but we are prudent, and there is always the possibility that, well, looking at the way the financial plan going forward over the medium term is, there will be a point where there is a small excessive income based against future expenditure, but when you look through the medium term plan, you will see that that levels out. So, yes, there may be a little more money at the end of one financial year, but if you look at how it goes through, that is only to smooth out the transition going forward into future years. Just good financial planning. There is no other way about it, to be quite honest, unless you want to hit people with extreme highs and extreme lows. And that is not good financial management, of saying, you know, we don't have to charge you now, but we are going to rocket those charges in the future. So it is a smoothing out, and yes, that does have a small, but it ain't almost a negligible impact on the expenditure of the council.
Thank you. Do I have anyone else from the floor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Rackham.
Thank you. It's just really about the £1 million homelessness budget, which is set to reduce over the next 3 years, and to highlight my concern really that people's fixed rate mortgages are still going to carry on into that time, and we're going to end up with more homeless people during the 3 years, and I think reducing the budget by the dramatic amount over that time, I think it's a bit too early. So it was just really to highlight my concerns over that. Thank you.
Councillor Steve Davis, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, sure. I think you make a good point. But I've looked at the numbers, and I think we're quite comfortable with what we're predicting here. So as far as I'm concerned, it is under control. It shouldn't get any worse than it currently is my belief. And I think we're going to monitor very closely, as you can imagine we do. So I'll be reporting back to the overview and scrutiny panel as well on a regular basis to show exactly where we're at in terms of predictions and likely outcomes. And
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Jill. I was hearing something yesterday with taking the housing stock up to EPC levels that the government are asking. And I know it because of the way that the Prime Minister's mentioned that individual landlords can go to 2035. And I heard a thing that they're not allowing that for councils. Am I correct in that? Someone maybe correct me on that, because otherwise we've got about a £9 million to spend on our housing, I understand. Can someone confirm that, whether that's the case?
Councillor Davis.
yeah, thank you, Councillor. I think my understanding is that 2030 is our target, and we intend to hit it. What the government might be saying from day to day sometimes varies, to be honest with you. But as far as I'm concerned, it's 2030, and we'll go for the earlier date in any event.
It just concerns me because that's a massive financial burden on the council, and some houses will very difficult to get them up to the standard of EPC.
Can I come back on that? I think the biggest challenge, the most common fault, is that they're currently at D, they need to move to C. Most of our council houses that are below EPC 3 right now, EPC C, sorry, I beg your pardon, are at D. And it's a very simple change to bring them up to C, which is, would you believe, simply more insulation in the loft, is what I'm told. So that's what the officers have said. We are doing as you know, a housing study now anyway, so there'll be absolutely no issue for us as far as I'm concerned.
Can I just add to that as well, just to point out that we are very much engaging with DLUC in terms of the funding support that is being provided as we speak by the government, and making obviously the case that that definitely needs to continue. So the current project we've put in with the government is 50% funded. So we're very much looking for a level to continue along those lines. So the government do understand that this is a significant financial pressure, so they are willing to contribute.
Wonderful, thank you. Can I now take you to the recommendations on page 69?
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 7, annual fees and charges for 2024, car parking and Keyhaven moorings. Councillor Jeff Blunden.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning. An excellent and detailed report, and I'd particularly like to thank the Overview and Scrutiny panel for their input and comments. I believe we have sought to take a fair and balanced approach to these fees and charges in the current economic climate, and fully support the recommendations. Going forward, the development of a parking strategy is essential, and I look forward to working with the Task and Finish group on this work. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Right, firstly, I think I go to Chris Noble.
Thank you, good morning. So the report sets out the parking and mooring fees for the coming year. We set these in the autumn because these fees are applicable from the 1st of January in the new year. We have 44 car parks in the New Forest District Council area, and we split those into what we call town and village and amenity car parks, amenity car parks being those primarily along the coast. And amenity car parks have a seasonal charging structure. Council offers short and long stay parking clocks used by over 32,000 people. The Council has not historically raised car parking fees consistently, nor as a minimum in line with inflation, and in some cases fees haven't risen since 2018. Based on CPI, charges that have not been increased with inflation since 2018 are already nearly 40% behind where they would have been if an inflationary increase had been applied annually. Section 4 proposes the new charges for 1st of January onwards. Most tariffs will increase by £1, except a couple of things, except the 1 hour parking fee, which will remain at £1, and the up to 20 hours tariff, which will increase by £3. And the cap on the first hour allows the council to continue to support local businesses and high streets. The tables show the full proposals and they include some benchmarking data from Christchurch and Fareham. And just to note that those two have been chosen as a relatively close, within relatively close proximity to NFDC and being authorities with a mix of coastal and town areas. With regard to parking clocks, we have some benchmarking data included as well in 5.2 of the report, and that indicates that our clocks are priced very low when compared to others, and therefore there are proposals to increase the price of those in 5.3 and 5.4 of the report. Section 6 of the report shows the proposed dates for free parking in support of town and village economies, which is something that we normally do around this time of year. And the report also introduces the idea of the parking strategy that Councillor Blunden has already referred to. With regard to Keyhaven, NFDC manages the river and a range of moorings for crafts of varying sizes, and Section 8 of the report proposes a 10% increase across all fees, and the detail of that is shown in Appendix A. And it's felt that these fees will remain comparable with others, though acknowledging that the operation at Keyhaven is quite different to other nearby river moorings or harbours. Financial implications are shown clearly in Section 12 of the report. In conclusion, the setting of fees and charges will necessarily consider the current economic climate, not least recent inflationary pressures, cost of living, as well as the desire to support the economic viability of our town centres and supporting the journey towards net zero. Increasing fees for 2024 is a reasonable step in the context of many charges being frozen for up to 6 years in some cases, and our position in relation to comparable councils, which demonstrate our current good value for money, in particular in relation to parking clocks. There are many further themes for further sort of consideration in the future. It's important to put on the table and which currently make up our holistic approach. In large part, as already described, their review is best served through the development of an evidence-based district-wide parking strategy. And that strategy will be supported by a member task and finish group, which will meet for the first time before Christmas.
Thank you, Chris. I'd like to now go to David Hurd, Environmental Enforcement and Amenities Manager. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Councillor. I haven't really got anything to add from what Chris Noble said. Obviously, the key thing really for me is that our charges, town and village, and the lower amenities haven't been increased in a significant time. And when you benchmark against other towns and villages, benchmarking is an interesting thing because I could have chosen Sandbanks, which is probably the most expensive place to park, or I could have chosen somewhere in the frozen north, which would be a lot cheaper. But it was trying to find comparables, and I think the ones we've chosen are relevant. So that's...
Thank you. Any members of the Cabinet wish to comment? Councillor Heron.
Chairman, although a member of Cabinet, can I be a little bit parochial on this, being also the member for Ringwood? I think it's very important that we sitting on the edge of the district, close to a major conurbation of Bournemouth, I think it's very important that we benchmark against local councils and ensure that there is some sort of parity between our charges, especially along, say, parking clocks and other conurbations, because when we find that we fall too far out of balance on that, we find that actually we become a parking facility for other conurbations rather than to deliver for our local residents and our local communities. And in Ringwood, we are particularly sensitive to that. So I am actually, whilst slightly displeased, because I will be one of the people paying that extra charge, like many of us sat around this chamber. I am also equally pleased that there is the possibility for our shop owners and our business people working in the town to be able to find a parking space because it isn't filled by somebody else who's then going on to another destination. So I'm delighted to see this come forward. I'm pleased to see that we have actually balanced it with other local charges with other people in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wade.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I understand that we need to put a rise, because we didn't put a rise in yesterday because it was last year because it was election year. But I am more concerned about the eye-wateringly high percentage rise for the parking clocks. I note the report doesn't benchmark as anything else because I don't think any other authority, certainly in our area, has parking clocks like we do. It is a somewhat unique New Forest initiative. But really it is an assault on the New Forest motorists who buy a clock because it's quite a significant hike. It's also an assault on the traders. It's got a double whammy, really. Not only are we potentially pushing people out of our town centre car parks to shop in the out-of-town superstores with free parking, but very many of the clocks are purchased by the very traders and businesses and their staff themselves. And if a trader buys 5 long-stay clocks for 5 members of staff, that's a significant extra overhead to his or her business. And I think it's a bit of a worry that we haven't necessarily considered that aspect to this, because we really need to support our local traders and we really need to keep people visiting our town centres. So I am somewhat disappointed that we have put such a high rise on the clocks. Not so much the parking meters themselves, because we haven't done that for quite a while, but the clock is one of the concerns.
Councillor Blunden.
Yes, thank you. I mean, adjustments to pricing structure is really never welcomed. But if I can really look at value for money, you talk about large increases in percentages. Percentages actually don't tell the story. What is important that our charges are comparable with other areas, and I believe that they are exceptionally good value. You've only got to go into to Bournemouth or wherever you want to go around a district, and it's out of the district, those charges seem to be significantly more. When you talk about the parking clocks, for example, the short stay parking clocks on the proposal actually works out at less than 80 pence per day to park your car for up to 3 hours. And you can do that 7 days a week. So it really is extremely good value. The other charges, they haven't increased, as Chris said, for the last sometimes 6 to 8 years. So I'm particularly pleased that we've been able to do that through the pandemic and through the major part of the economic situation, but not to continue not adjusting these charges is really not sustainable. The other point I would like to make also is on the hourly rate has not changed, so that's still frozen at £1 per hour. Again, that enables people it supports local residents who are able to park their car, but more importantly, it's supporting the local businesses. And it's for all car parks as well. So those who want to, say, go for the car parks and go for a walk or take their dog for a walk, that is still £1 per hour for that first hour. So it really is, I believe, very good value. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Rackham.
Thank you. Of course, not such good value in Totton, where we had no charges and they were brought in during the pandemic. The long stay clocks going from 140 to 220 like this is just such a massive hike. I think for anybody buying that in one go, that's something that needs to distinctly be thought about. And for a lot of businesses who buy for people that work for them, I think that's going to be a huge problem. I'm really glad to see that there's a parking strategy on the way, because I've been saying for a very long time that not all areas are the same. We have competition from Southampton, and this kind of action of putting the charges up in one go like this is going to have a real impact on the competition for our high street. It's a huge increase on the during a cost of living crisis, and I think side roads will suffer around the car parks as people park in the side roads and the residents' areas rather than in the car parks as a result. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Nobody actually likes to pay parking charges of any type. Everybody complains if they get a parking ticket. Only one person's able to blame if they get a parking ticket. That's the person who parked the car. And if you want to avoid parking tickets, etc., you park in a sensible place. Our car parks are a sensible place to park. They provide some of the best value ever in the whole of this country. You know, if you do travel around and you do park, You know, I know plenty of places where you're parked for £12.50, £15 a day. You go into BCP, you're certainly paying for 3 or 4 hours parking. You're paying £4.50, £5.50, depending on exactly where you park in those car parks. So I actually say our parking clocks and the strategies we have at the moment and will be developing are actually a come to the New Forest and use our shopping facilities. They are an encouragement to people to use it. For example, if you do buy the clock at £40 a year, which I think is an excellent value, because that's what it would be, if you do go into one of our car parks and park for more than an hour, you'll be paying more than £1. If you park once a week for more than 2 hours, you're actually saving over 50% of your parking fees every time you park, because it's £1 a week for 40 weeks. I'm not doing the sums very accurately, I know, but if you average out, if you park for 40 weeks a year, you're parking for £1 a week anytime you want. But if you just use that car park once and you park for 2 hours, it'll cost you more than £2, so you're saving a lot of money. So come on, park in our car parks. They are such great value.
Thank you. Councillor Craze.
Thank you, Chair. The theme of the meeting seems to be fairness. Fairness to the users, fairness to the public and the communities, and equally fairness to the council itself. We're here to provide quite a wide range of services. We can't do that on the back of here's 10 pence or here's 15 pence. We value the services we provide. The community also value the services, and we were talking about housing earlier on. I think it was interesting to hear from Councillor Davis when he had the financial reports about it gives you the warts and all response. We have a good team managing the finances. Clearly, as Alan has said, looking ahead, not next year, the year after, but further ahead. Therefore, already making and taking decisions based on what is likely to happen, whether good or bad, in the future. I think the car park charges and equally the Keyhaven charges are well versed and adequate. I don't think that we need to concern ourselves with, is this 10 pence more or 10 pence less? What we've got to do is be commensurate with the rate of inflation, with the current charges when you look at other areas, and the fact, as Chris has said, in some cases, nothing has been increased since 2018. No, come on, get realistic, get commercial. That's where we need to be. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Glass.
Thank you. We've just heard about complaints about the prices going up, and I hate anything going up, being entitled, what's it? But when we think of what it costs to run a car park, would it be fair to let people use it a lot cheaper and burden the people who pay our rates with the cost of running a car park when they might not have a car? Car parks are charged business rates. Car parks take maintenance, cleaning, painting the lines and everything else. So they cost quite a bit to run. I think the £40 a year clock for our locals is quite a good deal because they can go and use it any time they like. I think the charges, although I don't like putting them up, I think they've been put up the bare minimum just to cover costs. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. It is an interesting debate, really, on this and what is fair. But whilst listening to the debate, I was scrolling back and forwards through the report again and rereading it. And it was fascinating when I hit again on 5.2 and looked at the comparison on the long stay clocks. And the Chichester's annual permit is £704. The businesses there pay that. At Fareham, 520. Test Valley, £680. So, despite our rise in prices, we are still offering an exceptional value for money compared to other conurbations within a reasonably close proximity to us. So, as far as that goes, I think that I'm pleased to see this coming forward. I'm pleased to see that we are charging not an extortionate, but a reasonable price for parking. And when you look at the cost of motoring on a whole and how that's increased, the parking, it's not surprising that parking will go up, and it's gone up far less than an awful lot of other costs associated with that. And there is always a way around it. There is a way around this, and Councillor Wade, I'm sure you're very keen on it, because if you cycle into our town centres, you can park for absolutely nothing. So support the Green Agenda. Thank you.
Councillor Steve Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I just would like to say I actually agree with some comments that Councillor Glass made, and also Councillor Rackham. I know, shock. The fact is that car parks aren't free. They cost us quite a bit of money, and there's a great deal of analysis that's been carried out. I knew that from my previous portfolio, which shows, in fact, how much car parks do cost to maintain. Recently, we've had comments about one being resurfaced. Well, I know how much tarmac costs, so that must have been quite a job. I know how much the machines can cost when they get damaged. I know how much it costs for coins to be collected. Cash is an extremely expensive thing to collect. So the fact is that the fact that we have this strategy coming forward, I think is key to us, to our future here. We need to understand how much our car parks are costing, which ones also are costing us money to run as a net loss. So I think that would be a very interesting piece of work, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Barry Dunning.
Thank you, Leader. Can I suggest that with the situation that we have of a £90 increase, that rather than having a large increase from 2018 to now of £90, that maybe every year we look at it and put the rate of inflation onto the price of our clocks, rather than having one large amount over a period of 5 or 6 years.
Thank you. Right, let's take you to the recommendations on page 87, please. Cabinet, do you agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. Right, there is no further business. Thank you all for your attendance. The meeting